Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our top stories. Russian President Vladimir Putin has pledged full support to India after speaking with Prime Minister Modi amid ongoing India-Pakistan tensions. A UN Security Council meeting is to be held following the deadly Pahalgam terror attack as Pakistan runs a second missile test. Israel's Security Cabinet has voted to expand the Gaza ground offensive, with officials saying the entire enclave could be seized. It comes after the Israeli military called up tens of thousands of reservists, aiming to bring home the remaining hostages held by Hamas. Yemen's Houthi rebels have announced a campaign to target Israeli airports in response to Israel's expanding operation in Gaza. Meanwhile, the US and the UK have launched a joint airstrike operation, reportedly injuring 15 people. Russia has reported a Ukrainian drone attack on Moscow, with 4 drones reportedly being intercepted. This comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says a ceasefire is possible at any time, but only with increased pressure on Russia from world leaders. US President Donald Trump has announced a plan to impose a 100% tariff on all foreign films, blaming overseas competition for Hollywood's very fast death. Trump ordered the tariff to be implemented immediately. Iran says it remains committed to diplomacy with the US on nuclear talks, despite the postponement of a 4th discussion in Rome. Tehran stresses it has shown good faith through multiple rounds of negotiations and is ready to continue. Hard-right leader George Simeon has won the first round of the Romanian presidential election rerun. Simeon will face off against Bucharest Mayor Nicosa Dan, who finished second in the first round of voting. The King and Queen, along with other royal family members, have taken part in the 80th anniversary celebrations of WWII Day in London. A military procession has made its way to Buckingham Palace to start the 4-day commemoration event. Tensions are dangerously rising between India and Pakistan after a deadly terror attack in Kashmir's Pahalgam Valley that killed 26 people on April the 22nd. In a major move, India has suspended the Indus Water Treaty and is now expanding dam capacity in Jammu and Kashmir, halting the Chenab River flow. This marks a significant escalation in New Delhi's response. The move comes amid growing regional fallout. Pakistan has launched 2 missile tests in just 2 days, claiming they're part of operational readiness drills. Diplomatically, Pakistan is seeking Russia's mediation, but in a major development, Russian President Vladimir Putin has called Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, condemning the attack and offering full support to India's fight against terrorism. The Kremlin says the perpetrators must be brought to justice. Both leaders also discussed strengthening their strategic partnership, and Putin has been invited to India for the upcoming annual summit. And in another regional move, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has landed in Islamabad ahead of a visit to New Delhi. Tehran has offered to help diffuse tensions between the 2 rivals. Amid the escalating crisis, the United Nations Security Council is holding an emergency session today to address the growing threat to regional peace. On the economic front, Moody's has warned that sustained tensions could further weaken Pakistan's fragile economy and hurt its growth and foreign reserves. Well, joining us to discuss these ongoing tensions and the global reaction will be Major General Sudhakar Ji, who is a geopolitics, strategic and defence expert. But beforehand, we of course are looking at a situation derived from the Pahalgam terror attack in April the 22nd, which saw the death of 26 innocent civilians most of them tourists, and it has led to, of course, tensions between India and Pakistan. Firing over the line of control has been reported by Indian forces from Pakistan, and India alleged this has been met with it's been hit, of course, and met with relating action. Let's show you some of these comments then that have happened between Modi and Vladimir Putin. Putin first expressing his condolences over that attack we were just talking about. Of course, many world leaders reaching out to India and condemning the attack, and also showing support to India during this difficult time. Both sides emphasised, of course, a willingness to work together as well. This here, the water conflict, of course, the Indus Water Treaty, which was stopped by India. This is a visual showing you those waterways that are coming in from India into Pakistan, the Jhelum and the Chenab. We move on now as tensions in West Asia are escalating sharply after Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels claimed responsibility for a missile strike near Israel's Ben Gurion airport. The Houthis, in their latest statement, have now vowed to launch more missile strikes on Israel's airports. The Houthis said that they would impose a comprehensive aerial blockade on Israel by repeatedly targeting its airports. Let's listen in to what a Houthi spokesperson has had to say.
العظيم ردا على التصعيد الإسرائيلي بقرار توسيع العمليات العدوانية على غزة، تعلن القوات المسلحة اليمنية أنها ستعمل على فرض حصار جوي شامل على العدو الإسرائيلي من خلال تكرار استهداف المطارات، وعلى رأسها مطار اللد المسمى إسرائيليا مطار بن غوريون.
The rebels have issued a warning to international airlines, urging them to cancel all flights to Israel, particularly Ben Gurion. The missile, which struck just outside Israel's main airport, caused injuries and widespread panic. Some international carriers have already suspended flights to Tel Aviv. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded swiftly, blaming the Houthis and their Iranian backers in a fiery statement. He said Israel would retaliate against both the Houthis and Iran. Let's listen in to Benjamin Netanyahu.
We will take very strong action against them, and we always remember that they act with their patron Iran's direction and support. We will do what we need to do to take care of our security, to respond effectively, and to give Iran a due warning that this cannot.
Meanwhile, according to the Houthi Health Ministry, the United States and the United Kingdom have carried out joint airstrikes on Houthi positions. Reportedly, 15 people are said to have been injured in the strikes around Yemen's capital, Sana'a. Iran has firmly denied playing any role in the missile attack on Ben Gurion Airport. Its foreign ministry said the action was an independent decision by the Houthis in solidarity with Gaza, and warned that any retaliatory action against Iranian territory by Israel or the United States would have consequences. Well, joining us to discuss these latest developments in the Middle East is Adnan Nasser, an A News correspondent who's joining us from Beirut in Lebanon. Adnan, thank you ever so much for being here. Let's first look at these comments by the Houthis in Yemen, saying that a campaign against Israeli airports aiming to blockade Israeli airspace will be starting. How significant is this, and what response might be seen?
Well, the statement in itself is significant, and it follows a significant moment in the Houthis' attacks on Israel, because the Israelis have been receiving more and more advanced equipment from the United States that were designed to prevent these sort of attacks from succeeding. And of course, the U.S. is more than likely going to support Israel, not just politically or in rhetoric, but with military action, as the U.S. has been doing really since the inception of the Houthis' attacks on Israel, which is only happening because Israel is continuing its military campaign in Gaza. So the longer the Israelis don't find a political solution to their conflict in Gaza, the more we're going to see Houthi strikes into Israel, or at least attempted strikes into Israel.
Yes, Adnan, of course, the wider regional tensions is something we will continue to discuss on this programme as well. But looking at this strike, this coordinated joint strike by the United Kingdom and the United States, we know that there was a similar one on the 29th of April. Of course, US strikes on Yemen Houthi rebels have been continuing since March the 15th. What significance is there that the UK are now involved, and now that they're striking not just once but for a second time?
Well, they're going to keep being involved until there's a regional solution. I mean, the UK, everyone is involved to some degree because this is affecting the global trade. I mean, prices of ordinary goods or even high-tech goods are going to increase because of the Houthi blockade, or what they want to do is prevent more ships that they believe are aligned with the Israelis. They're preventing them from going through. They want to show that they have solidarity with the Palestinians. So the longer the Houthis keep up their own military actions in the Red Sea, the more likely we're going to see increased membership of, let's say, even other NATO members like the UK, as you mentioned, join in this fight.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I want to focus attentions on that Israeli response. I really want to hone in on what Benjamin Netanyahu might do, and how might military action in Yemen increase, not just following, of course, this announcement from the Houthis, but there was a missile that got through in Tel Aviv at the most popular airport in Israel. There must be a big response coming from Benjamin Netanyahu. What do you think that will be?
Look, more than likely we'll see potential airstrikes from the Israelis themselves. I'm sure the United States, there might be a possibility the U.S. would tell the Israelis, don't do this while we're having negotiations with Iran. The Israelis, of course, are going to, I can't tell what the Israelis will do. It's not for me to make that decision, but obviously it's open-ended and every option is on the table. And keep something in mind. Prime Minister Netanyahu mentioned Iran. I think that he will try to use this recent Houthi strike into Tel Aviv Ben Gurion Airport as a chance of scuttling the Iran-U.S. nuclear talks. This is something that he wants to prevent from happening. He doesn't want to see a new deal that would potentially not just end the sanctions on Iran, but potentially improve relations with the U.S. and Iran. That's not something that he wants to see.
Yes, Adnan, I'm glad that you brought that up. Of course, Iran denying any involvement in this strike on the Ben Gurion airport, saying it was an isolated attack from the Houthis. Is there a fear that not just Iran will be brought into this, but the wider region? Of course, you're joining us from Beirut, and we know that there has been military action between Israel and Lebanon in recent months. How much is this really on a knife edge?
Well, not really. There hasn't really been any military confrontation between the Israelis and the Lebanese. What we're seeing is Israel hitting Lebanon arbitrarily when it chooses to do so and how it sees fit. Only over a week ago, the Israelis hit southern Beirut, claiming that they hit a building that was harboring or housing, rather, precision-guided missiles. And there hasn't really been any retaliation on the part of the Lebanese. The opposite, we're seeing the opposite from the Lebanese side. They want to use diplomacy to hone in the Israelis to prevent them from doing this even further. And they're calling on international powers, particularly the United States and France, to pressure the Israelis to stop their strikes and to respect the conditions of the ceasefire that was brokered in November last year.
Yes, Adnan, absolutely. Of course, I do want to correct myself there. Of course, Israel's action within Lebanon, but also focusing on Hezbollah as well. Let's now move back to Yemen, and I want to look at the impact of these strikes. Of course, action from the United States, action from the United Kingdom, expected action potentially coming from Israel. While the Houthis, of course, control parts of the country, there are also civilians involved in this. What is the current situation for civilians living in Yemen?
I think it's the worst it's ever been because there's just been no chance of seeing a political solution. There were times in the last few years, at least before the conflict in Gaza broke out, that we're going to see some sort of negotiated settlement. As relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran were cooling and getting better, there was hope that it was going to have a ripple effect across the region, especially in a place like Yemen, which is already, it's been the poorest Arab country. It's the poorest Arab country out of all the Arab countries. So it's, unfortunately, I don't see it getting any better unless, ironically, if we see a deal between the US and Iran on the nuclear topic, you will see a higher chance of peace taking place in Yemen and the rest of the region.
Adnan Nasser, thank you ever so much for joining us and providing your insight on the ongoing situation in Yemen. As strikes continue in Yemen and action from the Houthis continues, we will, of course, be across all of the developments. We stay in the Middle East now, as Israel's Security Cabinet has approved a plan to expand military operations in Gaza. The plan includes the conquest of the Gaza Strip and the relocation of its residents south for protection. The decision was made after the military called up tens of thousands of reservists to intensify operations against Hamas. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu backs Trump's proposal for the voluntary relocation of Gazans to neighbouring countries like Jordan or Egypt. The cabinet unanimously approved expanded military actions targeting Hamas, aiming to weaken the group and help secure the return of hostages held in Gaza. Meanwhile, the European Union urges Israel to show restraint as it plans to expand military operations in Gaza. The EU warns of rising casualties and suffering among the Palestinian population. The plan also discusses the possibility of humanitarian aid disruption in Gaza, which has been under an Israeli blockade since March. Despite the blockade, Israel claims there is enough food in Gaza. The plan includes limited humanitarian aid for Gaza. The territory has been under full Israeli blockade since early March. Israel says there is currently enough food, but aid agencies and the UN warn of a growing humanitarian crisis. They demand that any aid be neutral and reach those most in need. Well, joining us to discuss the breaking developments that we've had today in the ongoing Gaza war, Ali M. Abushbak, an independent Palestinian researcher joining us from Cairo. Thank you for being here. I would like to first get your reaction to this vote that's taken place today, confirming that Israel are looking to seize the whole of Gaza.
The things, unfortunately, it's obviously shocked because Benjamin Netanyahu killed the last glimmer of hope for the Palestinian to reach to ceasefire and to live in peaceful things. Especially this time, it's very hard for the Palestinian who's suffering from the starvation, and we are coming in the age for the famine in Gaza. There is no supplies, there is no food, and people are suffering a lot to find out their basic food. So on the ground, the Palestinian today morning, they got shocked with this confirmation of the Israeli Security Council cabinet that confirmed that the exposure, the offensive and the Israeli military operation in Gaza and size a lot of land from Gaza, especially Israel controls 70% of the Gaza's places or the Gaza's area as what they call it a buffer zone. So on the social media, people are being shocked and pessimistic about the coming for their future. Especially most of the people on social media, they are emphasized that it's a part of the Donald Trump plan for the voluntary exposure for the civilians from Gaza and force them by voluntarily to leave Gaza. So the things is also we have witnessed last 2 weeks that the foreign minister of France and German as well as UK called Israel to adhere to the international law with regard to humanitarian aid and the food, and doesn't use the food as a weapon, a military weapon to pressurize Hamas to reach out for the deal with them. So the things is here's also on the ground. This is in one side, in Palestinian side, also in Israel, there is a disagreement with Benjamin Netanyahu's decision, especially most of the opposition people, they consider it as a zero-sum game. Especially Israel, they didn't release any single captive from Gaza within a military pressure. So since the November 2023 and also January 2025, Israel released the captive by negotiation and with the talk lines, without any forces or without any military tools. So here's we have to note that Benjamin Netanyahu is, buying the time by his decision, and if he considered that Hamas will pressurize, because in the very beginning of the war, Benjamin Netanyahu decided that the significant aim, the war is erased Hamas and turn back the hostages from Gaza. But unfortunately, Hamas still existed, and Hamas doesn't accept it to lie down its weapon, like the significant challenge in the talk and negotiation between Hamas and Israel. We have witnessed several of a proposal that put up from Egypt and Qatar as well as United States, but all of that attempt is failed because of the Hamas also sabotaging the deal, as well as Benjamin Netanyahu. Last time we have witnessed Egypt propose a proposal to stop the war and at least for 6 years truce between Gaza and Israel. But Benjamin Netanyahu, he proposed a counter of proposal, which obviously Hamas denied and doesn't accept it. On the ground, the only people who's suffering from this kind of decision, that the civilians who's starving, the civilians who's killing day by starvation and by famine in Gaza. Israel targeting the chastity, the common chicken that offering a food for free offering the food free for the Palestinian who's suffering from the financial issue. Israel targeted more than 3 of kitchen in the Palestinian community.
Yes, Ali, sorry to interject. I do want to bring in this Trump visit that we know is going to take place in the region. Israeli officials have said that this will offer a window of opportunity, saying that if a deal isn't struck, then these new operations will continue. At this point, with proposals coming in from Egypt and Qatar, with counter-proposals coming in from Israel, it seems here that now it's about Hamas disarmament and the release of these hostages. Do you think that that is something that is a possibility, or Hamas going to continue with saying no to those, and it leads to further displacement and a continuation of the humanitarian situation we're seeing in Gaza currently?
I guess that the visit of Donald Trump is crucial at this time, especially also Israel decided that will not carry out this decision for exposing the offensive in Gaza until unless the end of the visit of Donald Trump in the region. And also that the open window, in my opinion, that Hamas is not going to release the hostages with the free of cost, just only for allowing that Israel allowed the Palestinian allowing the humanitarian aid to end Gaza. But the thing is also, in my opinion, and what we have witnessed, that Cairo is pressurized Hamas a lot to accept the deal, at least for ceasefire, for truce or ceasefire for a couple of months, and releasing the hostages. In my opinion, Hamas going to understand the lesson, and Hamas going to understand how much Benjamin Netanyahu is serious to occupy Gaza and also to invade Gaza by on the ground. Also, Hamas has no decision, in my opinion, and especially the people has no capacity to bear that more than pressure and more than starvation in Gaza. So the things is here is not the poll is not in the Hamas sides. Also, it's the poll is in the Benjamin Netanyahu is continuously sabotaging to reach to the truce or the ceasefire agreement or deal. We have witnessed that also Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement that we were so close to reach to the ceasefire with the Gaza, but the things is out of the control. So I don't know that what he's meaning. The things it went out of control since the Hamas accepted that the Egypt proposal, while Benjamin Netanyahu he released another counter proposal for him, lying down of Hamas should lie down the weapon, despite Egypt empathized that they will take the weapon from Hamas and will secure it by Egyptian administration. And Hamas has no rule in Gaza for at the day one after the war. Also, I'm sure 100% the people in Gaza themselves, the civilian, will not accept Hamas to be represented in any part of government with the next, after the day one of the war. So everyone empathize that Hamas has a new role. Hamas will not be posting a danger against Israel again. But Benjamin Netanyahu, he's acting like a stubborn to erase Hamas. This is a zero-sum game. You can't even see when in 2016 also, when Iraq launched a military operation in ISIS. The significant part, or the main aims for this operation, it was to devastate ISIS in Iraq. But until now, there is existence for ISIS because it's ideological things. It's not about the.
Ali, I'm sorry to interrupt again. We are running very short on time. I just wanted to pose one final question to you. What role does Iran have to play in the people of Gaza's safety and the people of Gaza's ongoing humanitarian crisis? Of course, Hamas, one of the proxy groups reportedly backed by Iran. Is it Iran's responsibility to do something about this so that tens of thousands of more people aren't displaced, hundreds of thousands potentially over the coming weeks?
Unfortunately, Iran has a project to control the power in the area, and also devastated all the community that Iran supported their military group. You can see Iraq community, you can see Lebanon, you can see also Yemen. The main example and the significant example is Gaza. Iran just only has one project in the area to destroy all the countries, the communities, and acting like an innocent. Iran has no responsibility for the people. In especially that in this region, because that also Iranian people are suffering from their regime, suffering from their policy. So the thing is, Hamas, no doubt it's a proxy military group for Iran and backed by Iran. But unfortunately, during this war, Hamas got hard lesson from that Iran, because there is no back. Just the only group that supported Hamas, it was Ansarullah al-Houthi in Yemen, also Hezbollah. But ultimately, Hezbollah withdrew from this war after they got hard lesson from Israel and devastated their power in South Lebanon.
Ali Emma Bushback, thank you ever so much for joining us as always. Of course, we will be across all of the developments in Israel, Gaza and across the Middle East. But that is all we have time for. Make sure you're staying tuned to NewsX World for all of the latest world news.